से सही बच्चा है तो खुद को डरा
At the beginning of the movie, we are told that social media was buzzing over the disappearance of 23 students after entering a mansion called Villa Nabila, located at Jalan Scude Johor Bahru, Malaysia. According to the report, the students have been missing since November 16, 2013. We then see an independent filmmaker named Daniel Madden, who says he is going to share his documentary about Villa Nabila. The abandoned mansion became a hot topic among Malaysians on November 18, 2013. When 23 students went missing after entering it. He and his friend Roseli Azrin interviewed Mohammed Izzat, the student who was believed to have gone missing at Villa Nabila. His friend asked him some questions, but he did not provide clear answers. When he was asked what actually happened to him at that time, he said he couldn't remember anything. He couldn't call his mom and forget where he lives. His mother said she saw her son going inside the mansion, but she was so scared to enter it, so she called the police for help. The police called her around 1 p.m. saying that her son has been found. Now a police officer says that on November 18, they received a report at around 1 a.m. that a student was missing since November 16 after leaving his home at 3:30 p.m. According to his friends, the student went to Villa Nabila. As soon as they received the call, they took immediate action with help from the fire department and the police dog unit to begin the search for the missing student. The search continued until the next morning, but they didn't manage to track down the missing student. There was a rumor going around that 23 students had gone missing, and they were heard crying for help. But he believes the boy did not go missing in the mansion or was abducted by the spirit. During his investigation, Daniel finds a demolition notice on the mansion's wall, and it triggered them to look for the contractors who were involved in the demolition project of Villa Nabila. They found out that after the missing student episode, the demolition work had begun there. However, until this day, the mansion was still intact. One of the employees named Junaidi tells them that the place is spooky and haunted. He really wants to tell them, but his boss Manaf has forbidden him. They ask him if is there anyone else involved in this project besides him that they can talk to which the man gives them Asiraf's name. After this, they meet Asiraf who agrees to tell them but they must not show his face. After that meeting, they search for a production house to co-produce this documentary, as Asiraf's story required a lot of resources to produce. After getting rejected by many producers and directors, finally they met Syafiq Yusuf, who initially doubted the authenticity of the stories, and he still doubts it to this day, but he managed to convince and bring him to Johor Bahru to meet Asiraf. After the meeting, they came back and Syafiq suggested a reenactment. We then see Emma reaching the demolition site on the first day of their project. He looks at the villa and recognizes that this is the well-known mansion Villa Nabila. He tells his employer that this place is haunted, but then Asiraf reaches there, and one of the workers says they should pray before they enter the mansion. Asiraf tells that he was the first assistant to his boss Manaf. They then enter the villa, where Asiraf asks Manaf if this place is really haunted, to which he says he has no idea, but he has heard many stories. Like a girl who was buried in the wall, teenagers went missing, and an entire family was murdered here. Asiraf tells that there were 6 of them in total, and then he went into the mansion. He thought it was too big for the 6 of them to demolish. He suggests Manaf to use a tractor, to which he says the tractor will be here on the 4th day. On the other hand, the second assistant Ishak was very grumpy and used to scold the workers without any reason. After this, they all start working and with the help of hammers, they start breaking the walls. Now when everyone was breaking the wall, Asiraf finds a tile wall that looked easier for him to break, and when he hammers on it, suddenly blood starts flowing from the wall. Seeing that, he gets terrified and immediately runs out and goes to Manaf. But when he comes back with everyone, there was no blood. He says he saw blood flowing out from here, but Manaf says it's just his imagination and then leaves there. Asiraf says at that time they didn't believe him, but this was the first time he ever saw such a thing and he didn't feel like working after that. Emmer then says that while they were breaking the wall, he noticed that the structure was so tough, and he wanted to quit at that moment. Now while they all were leaving after finishing their shift, Manaf asks the Seraph why he is still unsettled, to which he says he thinks he won't come to work tomorrow. Manaf says he is already short of workers and asks him to think overnight and try and come tomorrow. After this, when Manaf sits in his car, he hears a female crying from the back seat. But when he looks back, there is no one there. Here, when a Seraph comes to his house, his wife Huda sees that he is very upset. She asks him what's the matter, to which he tells her his new project is at Villa Nabila and there is something weird about that place. Later he prays and asks God to give him guidance. Now even at night, he was not able to sleep, and only then he hears some noise from the almirah in this room. But when he goes there to check, there is nothing inside it, and when he turns around, he sees a ghost sitting on his bed, and suddenly he wakes up from sleep. Now the next day he does not go to work and tells Huda that he will find another job. She tries to convince him that there is nothing at that place, to which he flatly refuses to go there. But when he sees the bills, he is forced to go back to work. Otherwise, there won't be any income. But on reaching there he finds that Manaf is stunned. He shows him that the wall that they broke yesterday was in its original condition. He says someone must have built it up after they left last night, to which Amr says it looks as perfect as it was yesterday. Manaf asks Amr to bring Handycam from his car, place it there and they will see who is messing with them. After that, they start breaking that wall again, and during this, Ishak hides a bottle inside under the stairs. After a while, a worker comes inside to urinate, but only then blood comes out of his mouth. Here Manaf talks to the tractor owner but he says that he will come by next week. Now as he disconnects the call, a ghost pulls his leg, causing him to fall down the stairs. Now in the hospital, he tells a Seraph that when he was on the stairs, he felt like someone pulled his leg. He asks for his help to complete the project for him, as they have only 3 days left to finish the project, and he offers half of the earnings to him. The Seraph says he will think about it, and Manaf says he is counting on him. Now when a Seraph comes back home, he finds that his wife is sick and her inhaler has also run out. Only then someone calls him from outside, and when he goes out, it is his neighbor, who asks him when he will return his money. On which Ashraf says next week. Now when he comes back inside, Huda tells him that she is pregnant, and he tells her that everything will be alright. Now after what happened to Manaf, a Seraph was also terrified. But because he agreed to complete the project, he come to work eventually. He sees that the bushes that he asked Junaidi to chop off yesterday were still the same. So he goes inside to look for him. But coming inside, he sees that the wall is again in its original condition. He asks Amr for the camera to check but sees that the recorded video was really dark without a night vision setting. Then a worker comes there and tells him that a municipal officer is here. A Seraph tells him that they are facing problems here and he thinks this place is haunted. The officer tells him that this is a government project, so he still needs to complete it within the time frame. Otherwise, they are not going to pay, and he could be charged as well. He asks his team to work, to which Amr asks what if the same thing happens again. To which he says they will stay here tonight. Now they start breaking down those walls again, and during this, Ishak tells a worker named Carl that he has been with Manaf for a long time but he still promoted a Seraph, on which Carl tells him that a Seraph is better than him. Ishak gets furious hearing this, and leaves there throwing the machete into the water. Now Carl is thinking about how to get machete out of the water when some unseen force tries to drag him away, but he flees there in horror. Now that night Amr brings his own camera along with Manaf's camera, out of which he places one camera inside the mansion, and the other one he puts near their camp. Junaidi asks Ishak if he is scared. Due to this, Ishak gets irritated and starts fighting with Junaidi. Both of them start arguing, and during this, we are also shown the real footage of that moment. A Seraph calms them down and asks Junaidi to ignore him, after which Ishak goes inside the mansion. There he takes out his bottle but sees that whatever he had hidden there is no longer in it. Here a Seraph notices that Amr is missing, and we see him recording the bushes. After a while, suddenly someone haunts him, and hearing his voice, Junaidi and a Seraph run to that side. Amr tells them he felt like someone touched his shoulder. On the other hand, we see Ishak lighting some incense sticks when a ghost attacks him. Hearing his scream, they rush into the mansion to have a look, and find that Ishak has been possessed. They see that he was doing some satanic ritual there and they try to bring him to his sense. But suddenly someone drags him back and he levitates in the air. A Seraph and Junaidi try to control him and start reciting prayers, but they were unable to control him. A Seraph then asks Amr to put the camera down and assist them. after which he puts his hand on Ishak's head and starts praying, and finally they manage to control him. They then try to get him out of the mansion, but they noticed that they were walking in circles. Now they keep Ishak down there and they did not understand what was happening to them. Asiraf goes out from one door and comes in from another. Only then Amr points to his back, where they see a ghost behind him, and they all get terrified seeing it. But then they all start laughing like crazy. Then after some time, when Amr wakes up, he sees Ishak sitting in front of him growling, and then suddenly his body starts stiffening. On the other hand, when Asiraf regains consciousness, he finds himself near that tiled wall, and Junaidi finds himself alone in some other part of the mansion. Asiraf takes out a lighter from his pocket and lights it and calls Amr and Junaidi. But suddenly a ghost haunts him. Fearing that, he runs away from there. The ghost then haunts Junaidi and hangs him upside down in the air. But he manages to escape. They all three then reunite, and Junaidi says they can't leave Ishak behind. So they pick him up and storms out of the villa. Junaidi and Amr then take Ishak to the nearby mosque, and Asiraf takes a cab to his home. But he sees that Huda's car is not around. He asks his neighbor about Huda's car, to which he tells him that she went to look for him as he was away for 2 days. Here Huda had reached Villa Nabila looking for him, and seeing their belongings there, she feels that those people will be inside. She is looking for him when she sees Asiraf standing at some distance, and then he starts leaving from there. Huda starts following him, and meanwhile, Asiraf calls Amr and tells him that he will have to go back to the villa. Here Huda starts searching for Asiraf inside the villa when suddenly the ghost attacks her. After some time, Asiraf also reaches the villa and sees Huda's car parked outside. He comes inside the villa looking for her, where he hears Huda's voice from above, and he comes upstairs following her voice. But there he does not find her, and then the ghost haunts him, causing him to fall down. After this, when he comes down, he sees that red light is spread there, and only then he sees Huda in front of him. He goes to her and hugs her, but then he feels something strange and sees that it is the same ghost. She then attacks him, and after some time Amr and Junaidi come there with Ustad. They see that Huda is sitting clinging to Asiraf and starts trying to separate them while reciting prayers. Only then does Amr see the true form of that ghost, after which she starts getting weak and falls down. Amr and Junaidi bring Asiraf to one side, after which they see that Huda starts levitating in the air. And then after struggling for some time, Ustad manages to bring her down. But suddenly she screams loudly and tries to kill Huda by going to a corner. But they all together try to stop her. Ustad continues to pray, and finally, after some time, she becomes normal. Daniel then gives his conclusion as someone who had been to Villa Nabila. When his friend Rosali left him alone with the camera, he couldn't feel or see anything abnormal about the place. So Asiraf's accounts of the strange happenings could be true or fake. He can't say for certain. But regarding the story of the wall that they tried to break down, and that it returned to its original state the next day, he personally believes that it's impossible. The screenplay and the truth of this story depend on how the audience interprets it. They have contacted Mr. Manaf to confirm the authenticity of the story that Asiraf and Amr shared with him, but he asks them not to believe them. When they say they have footage of the incident, Manaf asks them if they know what kind of risk they are taking. He warns them not to produce the documentary and don't listen to anyone about the mansion. But when they insist, Manaf tells them not to take his name in the documentary as it will affect him, and then he disconnects the call. Asiraf is now working as a taxi driver. Amr is working in a timber factory, and Junaidi and Jabbar are still working with Manaf. Villa Nabila is still intact on the outskirts of Danga Bay, Johor Bahru. Please like and subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon never to miss new video updates. Thanks for watching.